Hey, what's up guys? I'm back with another analytical video here, and this time I just kind of want to cover why I personally don't like the new weekly idol. I am not trying to bash the show or the new hosts, and I'm not trying to speak on behalf of anybody else. I'm simply here just to give my opinions on what I think about the new changes to the show. Before we can really dive into what I do or don't like, I think it might be best to start off with a base set of questions and then go from there. The best way that I can think of to divide this up is to ask three main questions. 1. Is it fair to judge the new hosts already? 2. What is those hosts' jobs? And 3. Why did I like Hyeong-don and Defcon as the hosts previously? Let's start with the first question. Is it fair to be judging the new hosts already? In short, my opinion is yes. They kept the show's original name, they kept its concepts and ideas, and they kept its iconic look, at least for the most part. It's clear to me that they wanted to keep everything similar to retain the same audience that the show has built up over the years. They want to keep those gains, monetary and otherwise, and they are using the show's previous efforts and standing to do so. Even if you think it's not fair to be judging the host and show already, fairness does not matter in the market. It's vital that a show fixes its issues and maintains its audience, especially when it comes to shows with an impact and influence such as Weekly Idol. Because regardless of a single person's opinion on the matter, when it comes down to it, if people aren't watching, the show will get cancelled. In any case, I do personally believe that it's fair to judge them. It's been a month now, and it isn't like any of these hosts are new to being on television. So what is the host's job? Hosts are supposed to be people that the audience can relate to. For a show like Weekly Idol, where the main focus of the show is to allow for the audience to see different sides to their favorite idols off stage, having a welcoming personality is imperative. A host should do their best to do research on the guests that they're inviting to their show, and they should do some kind of rehearsal or practice of the scheduled events to keep the atmosphere as it's needed. Maintaining the desired atmosphere of the show is of utmost importance, and to risk losing that climate at any point is to risk the entire episode. Hosts should help the show move along at a reasonable pace and make sure that it never feels rushed or tense. A host's job is definitely not an easy one, even if it may seem like it at times. It's a balancing act of disciplined and flexible measures and knowing when one is outweighing the other. Finally, why did I like the previous hosts? Defcon and Hyeong-don had an undeniable chemistry with one another. Watching the show, they often came off to me as being close enough to be brothers, and I think that it was pretty clear that this bond was not just an on-camera act. This synergy between them made them incredibly affable as hosts, and they knew exactly how to take that collaborative energy and extend it to their guests. The lighthearted and lively environment of Weekly Idol was entirely stemmed from the dynamic of Defcon and Hyeong-don, and I've always loved and appreciated them because of that. Now, before we jump into all the negative things that I have to say about this show, let me start off with the new things that I actually do like. The biggest and most important thing that I've liked about it so far is that the new hosts genuinely seem like they want to improve themselves as hosts. At the end of episode 350, which is when they first began hosting Weekly Idol, the end of the episode actually featured them asking guests for advice and feedback. They actually listened to that advice, and they even went so far as to make a segment of the show based on that advice. At the beginning of episode 352, they actually outright state that they want to improve, and it did make me want to root for them to do better as hosts in the future. If you haven't watched or are otherwise unaware, the new Thumbs Up Idol of the Week segment was created after Fromis 9 member Lee Se-yoon bluntly stated how difficult it was for rookie groups to get much attention these days. This is actually a brilliant idea for the show, and I'm really glad that they actually did it. There's some stuff that I don't like about it, but we'll get to that later. There are some other new segments that I liked as well. Animal Speed Farm, and from the fans, are both excellent ideas, and they played out really well in the episodes that had them. From the fans in particular is really great as a way for idols to interact with their fans without physically interacting with them. Sadly, that's about all the positives I think that I can list for the new show. Everything else that I have to say is going to be negative. So let's just hop right into what I would say is probably my biggest complaint overall with the new show. It completely misses the comfortable and lighthearted atmosphere that I liked previously. This is something that's actually apparent right from the start of an episode. Take a look at this picture of Defcon and Hyeong-don. Everything about them is relaxed and casual, right down to the way that they're actually dressed. Now, compare that to the new hosts. There's a pretty noticeable difference here in their body posture. They seem more tense, more rigid. Additionally, look at their clothes. Shin-young looks the most casual. Se-yoon looks a little bit more done up. And then Lee Sang-min looks entirely professional. Combine that with this gigantic new sign, which they have confirmed is real and not CG, and you have a very different mood and atmosphere almost immediately into an episode. These new episodes also feel very segment to segment and bear almost no semblance of organic development. I'm fully aware that Weekly Idol is always a planned and scheduled list of events, obviously, but Defcon and Hyeong-don often took time to just break up the activities with some banter, or something that let both the viewers and the guests rest. There's a very obvious lack of this due to all of the new segments that they have, and it makes everything not only feel rushed, but formulaic and exhausting. Speaking specifically, if you watch episode 352 with Vix, it starts off with Snooper doing a 2x dance, almost immediately having to go into the new mining camera segment. Then Vix comes in, has a few minutes to introduce themselves, then we're right back into the mining camera bit, showing off some of the choreography right after, and then followed up with the roller coaster dance. By the time all of this dancing is over, it's been 30 minutes and we've only gotten dances and introductions with little else in between. It feels really front-loaded, but moreover, it feels too repetitive because of the format. Compare that to Defcon and Hyeong-don. This is a sped-up clip of them actually just talking and having fun with GOT7 for nearly 10 minutes before moving to the topic at hand. This really gave the sense that they legitimately cared for their guests, and that they were actually interested to know the answers to the questions they were asking. Because of the way the show runs currently, it also prevents more of the naturally developed humor from being able to occur. More of the humor seems to come from the skits and games, rather than as something that would happen by chance. It also causes some bits of the show to be rushed through, such as Hongbin's portion of the self-written resume. Lastly, this arrangement makes it feel as though there aren't real connections being made between the hosts and the guests. It takes away that fun dynamic of seeing people bonding with one another, and instead it replaces it with forced interactions that end up with very little to take away from them. The last thing that I want to note on this topic is that there are times when it's way too obvious that the hosts are trying to overact their reactions, and it's not for a comedic effect. Here's a clip of Defcon and Hyeong-don reacting to Red Velvet's Shark song. Now compare that reasonably realistic reaction to this reaction from Lee Sang-min. It just comes off as try-hard and disingenuous, and that really impacts my impression of the show overall. The last thing that I want to touch on regarding the dances is that the hosts seem a little too eager to disqualify guests for making a mistake. Check out this clip of EXID nearly completing the roller coaster dance, and then within 1 second of Hani not being 100% on top of it, they immediately get disqualified. It makes this show feel a lot more like a competition and more tense, and it really just pulls the fun out of the segment because of it. Especially when you've seen the old episodes where Defcon and Hyeong-don literally allow guests to get away with like 7 or 8 mistakes. It was obvious that they just wanted the guests to have fun and get some prizes in the process, but these new episodes feel a lot tighter about it. To date, only G-Friend has succeeded their roller coaster dance, and if the hosts don't lighten up on how strict they are about it, I doubt that many other groups will join them. Alright, let's move off of that topic into something that's still kind of related. This is probably the most notable thing to anybody that watches the newer episodes of the show. The new hosts are entirely devoid of synergy with one another. It really feels like Kim Shin-young runs the show, and that Se-yoon and Lee Sang-min are just kind of there. In my opinion, this is partially because both of the male cast members are just fairly unaware of the ongoings of the current K-pop scene. Neither of them seem to be all too interested in it, and it's incredibly apparent when you're watching an episode. Kim Shin-young will be the only one to know idol groups and names, and will be the only one asking questions and probing for more details. Se-yoon will chime in every now and again with a joke, but immediately fall silent after, and it's even rarer for Lee Sang-min to speak up at all. If you're looking for a specific example, look no further than the very first episode they recorded together. They were trying to guess all of the idols that were hidden behind this sheet. When it came down to it, almost every single answer came from Kim Shin-young. It was really awkward. Not only that, but she actually recognized this fact herself and said it. Defcon and Hyeong-don would play off of one another, and often involve themselves as being the butt of jokes to lighten up the mood of everybody in the room. Their priority concern was that guests were feeling comfortable, and you can see that in this next series of clips.
모든 분들이 다 챙겨주세요. 모든 선배님.
긴장 풀어. 야! 한번 하세요. 하나, 둘, 셋. 굉장히 좀 많이 지금 긴장을 하신 것 같아요. 네. 한번 시원하게 한번 소리 한번 지르고 갈까요? 네. 손영구하고 화이팅! 뭐 할까요? 네. 하나, 둘, 셋. 손영구 화이팅!
And there are hundreds more of those kinds of clips of the two working together. Whereas with the new host, it doesn't really feel like they do much together at all. In fact, it gets to the point where it seems like they actually don't like each other. I'm not trying to say that they don't, but the way that it comes off really feels like they aren't friends. I'm not saying they're enemies, I'm saying it doesn't feel like they're genuinely friends. Watch how Lee Sang-min stands off to the side almost every time that he's on the screen with his other co-hosts. He's never standing with them, but away from them. They kind of sandwich the guests in between them, and it feels really awkward. Defcon and Hyeong-don often transferred their high energy into their guests. It's really apparent that this factor is lacking with the new hosts. It often feels like Kim Shin-young is actually just playing off the guests, and that the other hosts are providing very little for her to work with. In fairness, the hosts did seem to lighten up towards the end of VIX's episode, which was the second time they recorded a real episode together. And they seem to get a lot better in the G-Friend episode, which was the latest one they've done. This episode really helped them out in my opinion. They actually called out G-Friend for feeling like robots, which was humorous, and they actually tried to make them lighten up. Sang-min actually joined in and looked like part of the host team for once. There was good vibes all around between the hosts, and their new segments went really well. Maybe it's G-Friend, I don't really know, but this episode really worked out in their favor in my opinion, and if there are more episodes like that, I think Weekly Idol will be fine in the end. The final major issue that I have with the new Weekly Idol has to do with the Thumbs Up Idol segment. Yes, I know that I said I liked it earlier, but I have some pretty big bones to pick with it as well. This segment is supposed to help shine some spotlight on lesser known artists and help get them attention, but the whole thing feels so rushed and short that I'm not really sure it succeeds at its goal. Up until now, all of the groups that have been featured have had to do their latest title track at 2 times speed, which means half the airtime that they would normally get. And then they get a very short time frame after that to try and get people interested in them. If that wasn't bad enough, I personally feel secondhand embarrassment over the Sprout headbands that they have to wear when they perform. Maybe it doesn't bother other people, but I personally feel like it's kind of humiliating for them to have to do it. One of my big issues with this segment is specifically with Lee Sang-min. Sadly, it really feels like he's just not paying attention during these performances, and his antics come off as rude and annoying rather than humorous because of that. He literally has his back turned to the boys during this. You can see his back to them, and it just seems really disrespectful to me. The cuts to him aren't funny, and while I'm sure they aren't meant to take the spotlight away from the group that's performing, that's exactly how it feels to me. All of the reaction shots in this performance are of Kim Shin-young and Se-yoon. Lee Sang-min is cropped out because it would be too awkward to show him not paying attention whatsoever to the group. The worst time that this segment's been done, sadly, has to be from the latest episode. Hyung-sup and I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'll admit that up front. Anywho, They literally prepared and performed an old song specifically catered to Lee Sung-min. And he seemed excited at first, but towards the end of this clip, you can actually see his eyes trail back to his apparently precious plant. Is it really that important that you can't watch some rookies that are literally trying to win you over just for 10 seconds? Believe it or not, that's not even the worst part of it. The worst part of this one was when they treat them like dirt and tell them that they're supposed to have 3 seconds to introduce themselves. But Weekly Idol is so gracious that they're gonna give them 5 seconds. If you think I'm joking, I'm not. They were so serious, in fact, that they actually stopped them in the middle of them talking and told them their 5 seconds was up.
시청자 여러분들이 두 분 궁금해하시니까 저희가 소개할 수 있는 시간을
그러면
이거 원래 3초인데.
원래 3초인데
네, 너무
감사함에 2초 넣어서 5초.
원래 3초인데.
5초가 신곡 소개 있죠. 신곡 소개랑 우리 팀이 어떻게 만들어졌는지 요거까지.
네네.
자,
형이 2.5초 말하고
2.5초.
제가 2.5초.
그 와중에 나누네. 의논을 하네요.
자, 준비. 시작.
너에게 이거 이렇게 하면 시간 버려요. 그러니까 저희 형사 모임은 정말 열심히 준비하고 이번 앨범은 정말 봄에 어울리는 곡이에요.
너무 형식적이야. 됐습니다. 여기에서 너무 형식적이야까지.
That's just not acceptable to me. You can't be that strict on time and want to include a segment that's specifically supposed to give rookie groups some spotlight. It just ends up feeling like the rookie groups are getting worked over for practically nothing. Making rookies feel even more uncomfortable by rushing them and even less appreciated by demeaning them, like this, is not a joke to me. I'm sorry, I don't find it humorous. Maybe you guys do, I personally don't. I don't want to end it on that sour of a note, so let me throw out a few positives that did come from that same segment. First and foremost, both boys came out looking like absolute champions for how well they took that treatment. Both of them seemed to take it in stride and focus on promoting themselves instead, and it worked out brilliantly for them in my opinion. Perhaps they never really felt that it was harsh to begin with, because the next positive thing that I have to say is that the hosts were actually pretty awesome in the follow-up portion. They helped make a pretty funny gag video that only added to the boys' charms, and I hope that the focus is on that rather than how poorly they were treated up front. I do have a few random miscellaneous complaints to throw in, but these are more like minor gripes than actual issues that I have with the show. I'll run through them as quickly as possible. I do know that this video is getting kinda lengthy. The first minor gripe that I have is that they replaced the CEO's card segment with Sangmin's card. It's not as funny or awesome to see a host pay for things that idols want, as it is to know that their CEOs are forced into doing that. It's still great that the idols can win prizes, but I just don't think it's as funny with Sangmin paying for it. The only other thing that I'd like to mention is that I felt it was really awkward how the hosts are the ones that have to prepare things for the idols now. Like, I just felt so awkward watching Sangmin serving Vic's chicken, or watching Shin-young try to figure out how to juice things. I don't know if it's just from budget cuts or something, but those segments felt really clumsy to me. Alright, let's wrap things up. I know that a lot of my issues seem to be directed towards Sangmin in particular. I think that a lot of those problems I'm seeing him have stem from his roots in other variety shows, where behavior like that's actually pretty welcomed in those atmospheres. But he's having trouble translating that to a show like Weekly Idol. Se-yoon is actually having similar issues, but rather than trying to push himself out, his problem is that he's insulating himself too much. Shin-young really seems to have found her footing rather quickly, and I hope that she can help ground her co-hosts quickly as well, so that these issues do get resolved. Human beings are naturally resistant to change, especially change that they don't want to occur in the first place. However, I don't think that my problems with the new Weekly Idol are because of an inborn refusal to the new. Rather, I think that these recent adjustments actually have the potential to be a solid foundation to build upon, but that they have need of some very important adjustments. While some may see my complaints as minor, I feel that the combined weight of all the issues that I have really sinks the ship. What do you guys think? Is the new Weekly Idol better? Is it worse? Do you guys think that it feels the same? Do you think you'll keep watching and that I'm just over-analyzing things? Let me know, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.